Hilchos bias Hamikdash perek chamishi. The laws of coming into the temple, chapter 5. Today, we're going to be talking about a Kohen who has no problems. Till now, we're talking about a Kohen with problems. He's drunk, he has torn clothing, he has tumah. Today, we're talking about a regular Kohen. A regular Kohen who wants to come into the Beit Hamikdash, he wants to serve. There's something that you have to do before you start to serve. And what is that? That's to wash your hands and feet in the kior. This is the kior. The kior was the copper laver, is the fancy English word for it. It's basically a fountain that has water in it with a bunch of spouts, and the Kohanim wash their hands and feet. So it's already in the temple. They would come inside, no problem. But you couldn't start to serve until you actually washed your hands and feet. And all the halachot about this washing is going to be today's Rambam. And then at the end, because it's going to talk about this, we're going to get into other rules about serving. You have to stand when you serve. You can only serve with your right hand. If you're a lefty, you weren't allowed into the Beis Hamikdash, and other things like that.
If you're a lefty, you're not allowed?
Lefty is a balmum.
Yeah?
Lefty is a blemished person.
All the lefties there, Bob.
Iter yad yamino?
Iter yad yamino is balmum. Sorry.
Wow.
Also, this is the source that we learn. You have to do Natalie Dam every single morning.
One of the sources. One of the sources, yes. Either because of ruach ra'ah, it's a bad spirit, or kekohen hamikadesh la'avodah. The reason we wash our hands in the morning is to be like a kohen because we're fresh. We're starting our service of Hashem, so we also have to wash our hands. Kasha, big question. The reason we don't wash our feet is because we don't keep our feet barefoot. We cover them. In the Beit Hamikdash, they used to go barefoot. What about the face? How come we don't wash the face?
Exactly, why not?
Before Shabbat, it says in Shulchan Aruch, you have to wash your face. How come here they don't have to wash their face?
Every morning.
Every morning, or in the Beis Hamikdash, they don't have to wash their face either.
Everybody washes face in the morning, no?
Huh?
Everybody washes face in the morning.
No, he's saying as a mitzvah. Why isn't it part of the halacha that you have to wash your face? Or for the Kohanim, why didn't they have to wash their face? The Rabbi doesn't give an answer according to the Nigla, but according to the Chassidut, panim is pnimiyut. Pnimiyut. Panim is Nashon pnimiyut. Your hands and your feet are the chitzoniyut. That's what you do everything with. You do with your hands, you walk places with your feet. So the Rebbe says, chitzoniyut, your external part needs to be washed before you come into the temple. But once you come into the Beis Hamikdash, the whole Beis Hamikdash is pnimiyut. The whole thing is inner dimension of Hashem. So the service itself is like washing your face. The service itself is like doing the pnimiyut. Okay, anyway. Just a little Chassidish avart before we start the Perek. Says the Rambam Halacha Aleph, mitzvah sasei, it's a positive commandment, lekadesh kohen ha'oived, yadav v'raglav v'achar kach yaved. Any kohen that wants to serve has to sanctify. Lekadesh, he uses the word to make holy. We're going to see it means to wash. But it's literally making holy your hands and feet and then serve. Shanemar, as it says, v'rachatzu Aaron uvanav mimenu es yadeim v'es ragleim. Aaron and his sons will wash from it, from the kior, their hands and their feet. The kohen she'avad v'loy kidesh yadav v'raglav shachris, a kohen who serves without washing his hands or feet in the morning, chayav misa bidei shamayim. He's liable to death at the hands of heaven. Shanemar, look what it says in the very next verse, yirchatzu mayim v'lo yamusu. They have to wash with water so that they don't die, which means that if they don't wash, they're going to die. And of course, whatever he did is disqualified. Bein kohen gadol, bein kohen hedit, whether it's a high priest or a regular kohen. How do we know that? It just says if they wash, they're going to die. It doesn't say if they brought a sacrifice and they didn't wash their hands, the sacrifice is disqualified. How do we know that? That we know from a different pasuk. Shenemar, it says in the end of the passage of the Kior, look what it says. Chok oilam, loy, in the Rambam it says chukas, but if you look in the Torah, it actually says chok. Chok oilam loy ulizaroi. An everlasting principle for him and for his children. Ubebigdei kuhunahu oimer, chukas oilam. And when it comes to the priestly garments, special mitzvah for the Kohanim to wear, it also says the same word, chukas oilam, an everlasting principle. So we learn what's called Gzeira Shava. The same word appears twice in the Torah. Whatever applies in one context applies in the other context. The same way if you're missing clothing. That disqualifies the service as we explained in the last set of laws. So too, if you didn't wash your hands and feet and you served, you disqualify, you desecrate the service. Halacha Gimel says the Rambam, however, you only have to do it once a day. The Kohen didn't have to wash his hands and feet between every single service that he did. One time you sanctify yourself in the morning, and you can serve all day and even the next night.
24 hours?
Yes, till the next morning. This is one of the sources for the rule that we say, B'kodashim halayla holech acharei hayom. In all other Jewish matters, first comes the night, then the day. Right? Vayihi erev, vayihi voker. Jewish day starts at night, Shabbos starts at night, and then it ends the next day. But in holy matters, Kodashim, it goes the opposite. The day is the beginning and the night follows the day. Here's one example. Kohen washes his hands in the morning, and he can serve all day and the next night. At night, there wasn't really any services to do, but they used to, what's called hektar chalavim ve'evarim. Any fats that didn't fully burn from the day, they would finish burning it at night. But he can do whatever he needs to do at night. Oh, no. V'hu. That's provided, shelo yetze min hamikdash, that number one, he didn't leave the temple premises. Number two, v'lo yishan, he doesn't fall asleep. Number three, v'lo yatil mayim, he doesn't go to the bathroom to urinate. And number four, v'lo yasiach daitoi, he doesn't divert his attention. If you did one of these four things, if you left the temple, if you fell asleep, if you went to the bathroom, if you lost track of and focus, you had to go back, find the kiyar, and before you did the next service, wash your hands and feet. Halacha dalet, yatsa min hamikdash, v'chazar v'avad v'loi kidesh. What if you left the temple premises, you came back, and you started serving without washing your hands, even though you were supposed to? If in the meantime you didn't take your mind off the Beis Hamikdash, you just went out for a minute for something, and then you came back in, so even though ideally you should do it again, but as long as you weren't Masiach Das, as long as you didn't divert your attention, you're good. There was a rule in place in the temple, just to avoid confusion, and people shouldn't have different questions. They always said like this: Ein adam nichnas la'azara la'avoda, afal pishahu taher. You cannot go into the azara, to the temple courtyard, to serve, even if you're pure, ad shehu toivil, till you go to the mikveh. So besides for washing your hands and feet on the kiyar, they would say, you know what, don't even come in unless you first go to the mikveh.
That's what you're serving too. Anybody.
Huh? Anybody.
So first you go to the mikveh.
Yes. Then you come in, wash your hands and feet.
Again,
If you're a Kohen.
The mikveh itself is not enough?
No, the mikveh is just to take care of all impurities. And then you wash your hands and feet for the mitzvah. Also somebody who went to the bathroom, solid waste. It's called covering your feet. Because according to halacha, even when we go to the bathroom sitting, we have to be tzniut, we cover our feet. And anybody who goes to the bathroom just to urinate needs to wash his hands and feet by the kiyar, no need for the mikveh. If you left the wall of the temple courtyard, here's our model based on Hamikdash. So this is the Azara wall. If you left this wall, im lishes bachutz yatsa, if you went out to spend some time outside, that was your intention. Kishachayzer ton tvila. When you come back, you have to go to the mikveh again, like the rule. You don't go into the Azara before you go to the mikveh. Even Tazat Nashim. V'im lachzer miyad yatsa. If you went out just to come right back in, you wanted to call a friend, you wanted to take care of something super short, then when you come back, you only have to wash your hands and feet. Here too, if after the fact you didn't go to the mikveh, you didn't wash your hands, and you still served, since at the end of the day you didn't divert your attention, you didn't go to the bathroom for solid or liquid waste, what you did is kosher. If you only stuck your hands outside the wall, no need to rewash the hands. If your hands became impure, you touched something problematic, you put them into the mikveh. You don't usually hear about this. You usually hear about washing your hands or going your whole body into the mikveh. You can dip your hands into the mikveh, and they're pure, with no need to rewash. If your whole body became impure because you ate something or drank something impure, and you went to the mikveh, even though
What is mashkin temeim?
impure liquid.
Like what?
if you touched a dead body and then you touched apple juice.
Oh, okay.
You made the juice tameh.
Okay. I thought maybe there is a mosquito.
No, yeah, okay, you're saying it's not inherently tameh, no. And you went to the mikvah, afal pisha ein nitzarich harav shemesh, even though such a person doesn't need to wait till the sun comes down, he's already pure right away, chayzeru mekadesh achar tvila, he should still wash his hands just for the structure of things. Shekol toivil mekadesh yadav v'raglav achar kach oivid. Whenever someone went to the mikvah, they would always wash their hands and feet afterwards and then go to serve. V'im loy kiddush, again after the fact, if you didn't wash your hands, you didn't divert your attention, you're good. Okay. That's all for a regular Kohen. Kohen Gadol, Halacha Zayin, the high priest. Shaloi Taval, V'loi Kidesh Yadav V'raglav, he didn't go to the mikveh or wash his hands and feet, Bein Begadim li Begadim, Ubein Avoida la Avoida B'yem HaKippurim, between changing clothing or between services on Yom Kippur. Now the Rambam is going to give us the full detail on this later on in this book. We're going to have a set of laws that's called Hilchos Avodas Yom HaKippurim. It's all about Yom Kippur service. And over there the Rambam says that there was 5 times that the Kohen would change his clothing. Yes, from the regular clothes to the white clothes, from the white clothes to the regular clothes back to the white clothes, whole bunch of times. Okay, and between each change, he would go to the mikveh, wash his hands and feet before the mikveh, wash his hands and feet after the mikveh. So what if a Kohen Gadol missed one of those mikvahs or one of those hand washings? The avad, then he did the service, he did the next step of the Yom Kippur service. Avaydasek Sheira. Here, it's kosher. Since these mikvahs and these washings are not equally applicable to Aaron and his kids, they only apply to Aaron. V'nemar, and the whole verse that talks about the problem of not doing service without washing your hands. What does it say over there? V'nemar, v'rachatzu Aharon uvanav mimenu. It says Aaron and his sons wash from there. That means davar ashave b'chol hakoyanim ma'akev. Only if it's something equal to all Kohanim, that's where it's essential to wash your hands. Shehu Kiddush Rishon, which is the first morning time washing. All the later washings that happen during Yom Kippur, they only apply to the Kohen Gadol, so again, he should do them, he must do them. If he didn't do them and did the service is still kosher. Halacha Ches, returning to the regular Kohen. Kiddush Yadav Hayoim. A Kohen washes his hands today, in the morning. So we said it goes for how long? It goes for all day and the night following. Tzarich lachzeru lekadesh lemachar, afal pisha layashin kalalayla. He has to wash his hands again, even though he didn't sleep all night.
But there is a mishmeret that you don't sleep all night.
Huh? Let's say it happened. Let's say it was a very busy time and he needed to be up all night. He was up all night. So usually we say sleeping, diverts your attention, but he didn't sleep. Can the first one count? He says no. Shahayadayim nifsales belina. Hands become disqualified just by spending the night. They've gone through the night, they become tameh. By the way, this applies even today. On Shavuot, when we stay up all night, we still wash our hands in the morning.
Without that.
Huh? Without bracha. Yeah, that's what it says in Shulchan Aruch. The Rabbi used to say, still make a bracha. Yeah. He said, Hora'a b'chashai. He said, don't tell people in public, it's just quiet. You make a blessing on until you're done. Yeah. It's a very, very interesting why he said that. But that's what we do. At least in Chabad. The minhag Chabad is to wash your hands and to say a bracha. But definitely not this. But definitely, even in Shulchan Aruch, it says not to make a bracha. Why? Again, because this concept that the hands become impure overnight. Kidesh balayla v'hiktir achalavim kalalayla. Let's say a Kohen only entered the premises at night. He missed the day. He didn't come the whole day. He shows up at night. He washes his hands at night, and he was the guy on the mizbeach all night, offering the fats that weren't offered all day. Too bad. When it comes to morning, you have to wash your hands for the daytime avodah, because again, it's a new day, new washing. What if you washed your hands and feet for the removal of the ashes? So this was, in a way, it was the first service of the day, but it never happened by daytime. It always happened before sunrise. They would clear the ashes, special mitzvah, we say it every morning, actually even today in Korbanot, Trumas Hadeshen. So what if the Kohen washed his hands and feet before doing that? Even though factually he's going to be washing his hands before sunrise, doesn't have to rewash once sunrise comes, because he did the service, he did the washing at the beginning of the service, and that covers him for the day. Halacha Yud says the Rambam mitzvah lekadesh mimei hakir. The mitzvah is to wash from that kir, from the laver, this special mechanism, this tool that stood in the temple. V'im kidesh me echad miklei shares. What if he washed his hands and feet from one of the jugs in the temple? There's a guy, actually on Yom Kippur, according to some opinions, the Kohen Gadol purposely washed from a jug, not from the kier. But let's say on a regular day, a Kohen would do this. He washes hands from a regular kli shares. Hare is a kosher, it's kosher. Aval klei achoyel eina mikachim. But if it's just a regular jug, not even a holy jug, it's just a regular jar someone brought from their house, that doesn't work. Kidesh b'kli shares bachutz, oy b'kli choyel bifnim v'avad. So much so that if you used even a holy jug, but you did it outside of the temple premises, or you used a non-holy jug and you did it even inside the temple premises, the avad then you served, avedasei psula. What you've done is disqualified. You didn't wash in the proper way. The ein mekachin b'seich hakir, oy b'seich kli hasharis. Try getting a picture of this, didn't work. You cannot wash yourself inside the kier, meaning, yeah, let's say this had a cover, right? Let's say you could take off the cover, and then the Kohen would stick his hands inside, or jump in with his feet. That doesn't work. Ela mehen. They have to wash from them. Shenemar, again, the same verse. V'rachatzu arenu vanav mimenu. Aaron and his sons wash from it, v'loi b'soiche, not inside it. V'im kidesh b'soiche v'avad. If you did wash your hands inside it and then you served, leichilel, you didn't disqualify it because it's not an essential detail, but ideally that's how you should do it. Halacha yud aleph, hit bil yada v'raglav b'mei mikveh, afilu b'mayan. Needless to say, if you put your hands and feet into a mikveh water, even if it's a spring, which is like the highest level mikveh for the highest level of impurity, ein zeh kiddush klal. But that's not called kiddush for this mitzvah. For sanctification, for the service, it's worth nothing. Ad sheyirchatz bekli, till you wash in a utensil, or with a utensil. Uv'chol klei hakedush mekachin, bein sheyesh ben revius, bein she'ein ben revius. You can use any holy jug, whether it has a revius, about 3-4 ounces, or it doesn't. Doesn't matter how small it is, it works. Halacha yud beis kol hameimos ksherim lekiddush. All types of water are kosher for using for the sanctification in the morning. Bein mayim chayim, bein mei mikveh, whether they're live water from a spring or they were gathered in. Ubilvad shelo yishtanem arein, so long as their appearance doesn't change, the color doesn't change. Alayu kamayim akshedim latvila, they should be like water that's kosher for a mikveh, just regular water. Tit hanoruk. Tit hanoruk means pourable mud. You see this sometimes in rivers, where it's a muddy substance, but it's not hard or rough. It just kind of pours. It's liquidy. Shahapara sheicha v'sheisa mimenu. It's so liquidy that a cow would drink from it. Mashlim l'meikir. That could comprise part of the amount of water in the kier. Zeh haklal, this is the rule. Kol hamashlim l'mei mikveh, mashlim l'meikir. Whatever can be part of a mikveh could be part of the kier's water. Halacha yud gimel. Kama mayim tzrichim liyas bakir. How much water has to be there in the kier at a time? Says the Rambam, ein pachos mikadei lekadesh mimenu arba koyanim. No less than enough for 4 kohanim to do it at once. Shenemar, as it says in the same verse, Aharon uvanov, Aaron and his sons, and the Rambam makes a very interesting calculation. Who were the sons that were alive at this time? V'hayu Elazar, v'Isamar, because the first 2 died. Upinchas imahem, and Pinchas was with them. You're asking a good question. Yesterday we read the Parsha Pinchas, and Hashem promised Pinchas that he's going to become a Kohen after he killed Zimri. After the story of killing Zimri, that's when he became a Kohen. Because initially he wasn't supposed to be a Kohen. Only whoever was.
Only Kohen.
Huh?
Not Olam.
No, because he was born
Right.
before.
He wasn't, because he was born before. So he did not become a Kohen. Only whoever was going to be born afterwards. Lo nitkahen Pinchas ad shaharagol Zimri. That's the words of the Talmud. Pinchas only became a Kohen once he killed Zimri. So this verse was said when the Mishkan was established, way before. So how can the Rambam say Pinchas was with them? So the Rebbe actually says that the Rambam doesn't rule like that. The Rambam rules that Pinchas became a Kohen before he killed Zimri. Pinchas was included in the Kahuna. And
The Torah says that Hashem gave him the
there's a different explanation for that pasuk. The opinion that will say that Pinchas became a Kohen later is not going to argue on this. He'll still agree that you have to have 4 Kohanim's worth of water, just he'll explain it differently. Either he'll say Moshe was serving during that time, learns it from a different pasuk, but this for sure has to be 4. Otherwise, it's called a machlekes b'metzius. Otherwise, you're having an argument about facts. I mean, how big was the kier? That doesn't make sense. Anyway, v'hayu Elazar v'Yisamar u'Pinchas yimayim arei arba. So you have Aaron, his two sons, and Pinchas, the grandson. That's 4. Halacha Yudaled mei kir nifsalin belina kamesha b'yarnu. Any water in the kir would become disqualified overnight, as we explained. Where did we explain this? In the beginning of this book. The kir had to have, technically, fresh water every day. But you can't refill it every day. It's too much work. So what did they do? This was called the muchni. The muchni is the pulley system. That was actually not, it wasn't part of the building at its core. Somebody came along and invented it. And the Mishnah says that they remembered him for praise always. He connected the floor right over here to a live spring, opened up a hole, and he made a system where every night they would take this kiyar and dump it in the mikveh. It would sit there all night so that it would always be part of a live spring, and then in the morning they'd pick it up and bring it out. So the water would be considered new. They would sink it into a mikveh water or a spring, and the next day bring it back up. Or if you didn't do that, you would have to refill it every morning. Tesvav, Hayamsha Asa Shleima, the great sea which Shleima HaMelech made. This is the Yam Shel Shleima. This is a depiction of the first temple. There was a big, huge mikveh that stood under molten images of cows. And it was a massive reservoir of water. It says the Rambam, this sea, was considered like a mikveh. Because there was actually live water running through here. It wasn't just a basin. It was connected to a live spring from the spring of Etam on the mountain nearby. Lefichach, therefore, its waters did not become disqualified overnight, like the waters of the kiyar could. If ever they had to fill up the kiyar, they would fill it up from here, this big sea. Halacha Tazayim, we're talking so much about sanctifying your hands and feet. How do you do it? Keitzad mitzvahs kiddush. How do you go about washing the hands and feet? Maniach yodei hayemonis al gaber ragle hayemonis, v'yodei hasmolis al gaber ragle hasmolis. Bit of an exercise. You put your right hand on top of your right foot, left hand top of your left foot, v'sheichel mekadesh, and you bend down and you wash from the kiyar. Any intervening substance, which is called a chatzitza for mikvah, would be a chatzitza for this washing. You couldn't sit down for this. You weren't allowed to wash your hands seated. It's like serving. Serving in a temple you can only do when you're standing. As it says, stand and serve. It's a little bit of a question on this picture over here because he's bending his knee. I don't know what's up with that. This guy's doing it right. See, he's doing the bending. He's bending his hand all the way down while he's standing.
So eating the korbanot was sitting?
Very good question. There's a big debate in the commentaries if they had to eat the sacrifices standing, and the Rebbe leans to say that they ate it standing. Okay. Yeah, they used to eat standing.
No wonder what they got sick over.
Shenemar, as it says, Lamoid l'sharis. Oh, here it is. You have to stand to serve. Whenever you serve, you did it standing. So now, the Rambam kind of segues away from the kiyar to other laws related to general service. Any Kohen who did service while he was sitting desecrates the service. Whatever he did is disqualified. You don't get lashes because the prohibition is learned from a positive commandment. It doesn't say don't sit. It says you have to stand and serve, which implies that you shouldn't sit. In general, anyone doing a service, he had to be standing on the floor. Here's a bunch of kohanim doing the morning service. On the floor you stand. If there was anything dividing between you and the ground, if you stood on a utensil, if you stood on an animal, on someone else's feet, psula, it's disqualified. If there was something in between your hand, if you're wearing a glove, between your hand and whatever you're holding, pasal, you disqualified it. Serving is only done with the right hand. If you did it with left hand, it's disqualified. You don't get lashes. If you were 1 foot on a utensil, 1 foot on the ground, or you're 1 foot on a stone, 1 foot on the ground, we check. How good is your balance? If we would take away the utensil or the stone, could you stand on the other foot, 1 foot? It's kosher. If you needed the stone, you needed the utensil, it's disqualified. If you were really holding or receiving whatever you were receiving in your right hand, and your left hand is helping you, that's kosher. Because a helper, we don't care about. As you see over here, the Kohanim bringing the daily sacrifices, they used to carry it right hand mainly, left hand was a helper. In some cases, they actually had to hold some things in their left hand, but the service that was done with it wasn't done with the left hand. Yutes, nisnadnada even me'avne ha'azara. If one of the stones on the floor came loose, lo yamid aleha b'shas havayda ad shetechubar ba'aretz. You cannot stand on that stone till you attach it back to the ground. V'im avad, but if you did the service on it, avedasek sheira, hayeluvim kaimai medes. If you did it, it's kosher because it's still in its place. It didn't come out of its place, therefore it's okay.